here. Looks like Caleb and Chris are in the same room there. So, and then Alyssa and Caleb, are you guys both like in Nettleton? Oh, there you go. Great. Found the two comfy seats. Well, good. Well, I'm sitting in my bedroom, so there you go. Like Max. Although I don't have Christmas lights and dress shirts hanging behind me like Max does, but that's okay. So, okay. Well, guys, let's get started. Thanks for being flexible with me. I know this class we only meet once a week anyway, so it's, my goal has been not to give you a ton of busy work just to replace me not being in class. So, you guys have been staying up on your stuff pretty well, so that's good. We have three things we got to talk about today. We're going to talk about meetings. We're going to talk about social media and workplace teams. And we're going to talk about Google and what they do to engage their employees. And so probably because all three of those things, some of you have written those over the last week and a half or whatever, it might be a little rusty to you. So what I want to do is give you a quick chance to review what you put in the discussion first on meetings. And so I'll give you 3 minutes to look up your comments that you posted to the discussion about meetings. Then we'll come back and we're going to talk about Patrick Lencioni's meetings video. So you can mute your camera and your audio and take a look for 3 minutes. All right, everyone coming back now. Good, good, good. Okay, so first, show of hands real quick, everybody. How many of you have worked in a ministry or a business where you have regular meetings? Not all jobs have meetings, right? Like some companies they don't meet much, but how many of you have worked somewhere? Just show a raise of hand where you had to sit in meetings. Yeah. I mean, in the military, they do a lot of like team trainings and things like that. So I've worked at a lot of different places. I worked, fast food in high school. Not a lot of meetings there. I worked at a grocery store. Not a lot of meetings there. Just basically they tell you what to do and you go do it. But then when I went to work for a Fortune 500 company, we had sales meetings every week. We had sometimes daily stand-up meetings. We had all kinds of meetings. And how many of you, raise of hand, if you had a choice between meetings or no meetings, you'd say no meetings. You really don't like meetings. Raise your hand. How many of you don't like meetings? Yeah, I mean, hey, it's Patrick Lencioni said 30% of our jobs when we get into career positions are oftentimes meetings, especially if you're a manager, yet most people despise meetings. So what I'd like to do is, first off, I think that format worked really well where I hadn't used the discussion groups where it broke you into two groups automatically like that, but that worked really well. And you guys did a great job responding and then kind of commenting on each other's discussion points. So great job on that. We'll probably do that again. It's a great tool to kind of break it up a little bit into smaller groups. The thing that makes that effective is if everyone's getting their stuff done on time so that everyone's communicating together versus like if someone waits too long, then they're not going to really have the benefit of the discussion because they're just adding at the end. So just so you know, that's the only thing that might kill that. But I'd like to go around the room and just talk about your impressions of what Patrick Lencioni had to say about meetings. So you can riff off any part of what he was talking about. Or you can just give your own thoughts on it. But he's one of my favorite authors, and he wrote a book called Death by Meeting, which is probably one of my favorite books on this topic. So it's just excellent, and it's a great story as well. So what we'll do is we'll start with Max up here at the top. He's at the top of my screen. Max, what'd you think about it? What are your thoughts about the meetings?
I thought it was really interesting. I like how he described meetings as needing conflict. Hadn't really thought of it that way before, but he said if it doesn't have the conflict, you can just cancel the meeting and just email all the information. Um, so after thinking through that, the leader has to make sure that conflict is presented clearly, but then also help facilitate solving that conflict, not just have this mess of, okay, we have a conflict and now everyone's arguing about it, but he has to kind of structure that process in solving the conflict. And then I also really liked how he talked about um, the way that the meetings are structured to give the things that are important more time, but then the things that are not as important, they're still important, but not as important time wise, to get those done quickly.
Yeah, great. Joe, what'd you think about it? I can't hear you for some reason. It looks like you're not muted, but try it again.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
All right,
yes.
sweet. I like the part where he talked about as a team or the leader of the meeting, you need to make it discuss the seriousness of it to people and just talk about how it affects the company and your customers and everyone's jobs, like in the future, especially. Well, in his case, he mentioned like a year budget meeting, like how for the next year it would affect them. But like every meeting has some purpose and it will affect something. So people need to take it seriously.
Great. Yeah. It meetings are a direct result of the leader. It's the leader's responsibility. It's shocking. I've sat in thousands of meetings in my life, and how many leaders walk into a meeting as if they really just don't care how people respond to the meeting. So, yeah, Krista, what do you think?
Um, I liked what he said about slowing down so you can go fast and taking time to just breathe and get everything put away, squared away how it needs to be, and taking time to recharge and then coming back stronger.
Yeah, great, great. Noah, what about you?
Um, yeah, I also liked how he was talking about like sometimes it's good to get out of the office. I think he was like for the monthly meeting, and just take a day, half a day, whatever it is, and just get a different like a different just a fresh perspective on things, and uh, so that you can kind of clear your mind and gives you a little bit of a break too. So
Yeah, yeah. Emmy, what about you?
I think I liked how he said it was important of being like the directors of a meeting because especially if you kind of are mentally checked out of the meeting as well, you just need to like get it done to check it off the list, then the meeting's just going to kind of drag and it's not going to flow well and people are going to be disinterested and not pay attention. So even if you're not like super excited about the meeting, you still need to be willing to push it forward and just get interaction or just know when a subject is done being talked about and everything like that, and then move on. It flow better and make people more interested in it.
Yeah, absolutely. So even if you're not the meeting leader, you do have a responsibility to try and make the meeting effective as well. You have to come in prepared and you have to keep your brain engaged as hard as the meeting leader might make it. So, Caleb Winey.
I like how he really pushed the point of not overkilling the time, and to me that's a big thing. Being organized, he made a really good point on organized and then keeping it precise and to the point, because if you get dragged into those long meetings because you're in the office, just like Noah said, if you aren't changing that up and you're in the office, you're doing the same thing, you're literally just dragging yourself in and you've already checked out. You aren't going to pull anything from it. You're just there. You'd be better off talking to the wall, because these guys are like, yep, when's lunch, when's break, when am I done with this? So I think if you can change up the places you're meeting, and if you're addressing the minor problems throughout the month and keeping those meetings for like the new exciting changes, just change it up. Don't always have it be negative and just harping on your guys every time, because otherwise it'll build that habit. Oh, what's you got to say this month? Or, how did we screw up this time? So if you can keep it short and to the point and keep it positive and stay on top of those little things and address them throughout the month, it'll keep it all from just being a giant explosion at that one time a month meeting. So that's what I have to say about that.
Good. Alyssa.
I think the thing about staff meetings is really interesting, and just keeping your employees engaged in what you're doing and getting their feedback every once in a while, even if it's something that might not be good that's going on. They still need to know what's going on within the company with major updates and stuff. So just keeping your employees engaged, getting feedback from them, making sure they're on the same page with things is really important.
Yeah, great. Caleb Love.
Something kind of similar to Max, but more on keeping a meeting from dragging on and seemingly going on forever by focusing on what needs to be fixed on the issues at hand instead of just bringing up things just to bring it up in a meeting when it could just be sent in an email by the person that's in charge of it.
Yep. Excellent. Well, let me encourage you guys, because meetings are such an important part of almost every job. Every job you're going to be sitting in meetings, you might be conducting meetings. One of the reasons why I like having our class in Domicos is because the Linden Conference Room is a meeting room, and that is getting you used to sitting across the table every single day and conducting our class the way you would conduct a meeting, a professional meeting. So I take it very serious. I know that there are all different aspects of being a college professor, and there are some things that I'm just not as good at. But the one thing that I try to do is I try to bring this exact topic to the classroom because I value your time and I want you to feel like you got a little bit of something every time we get together. So I never want you to feel like we just checked it off because we had to meet, so we got through this and read through an agenda and whatever. If it's something that I could send via email, I'll just send it via email. The interaction in a meeting is so critical. So let me give you just a quick breakdown of the outline of the book that this whole video came off of, his Death by Meeting book. First off, he makes two statements. He says that meetings are oftentimes boring and they're oftentimes ineffective. So it's a fact. And I mean, the nicest, most mature, brilliant, godly, fill in the blank, whatever positive you want, best leaders still seem to miss it when it comes to conducting good meetings. And a good meeting would be one that's not boring and one that's not ineffective. So it's effective and it's interesting, right? Even if the topic is not your favorite topic, it's something where you're like, okay, I learned something. That was worthwhile. That was worth my time. So the three things, you guys, a couple of you talked about it, but allow drama. So meetings need to have drama. And the book, the Death by Meeting book, if you guys are looking for a decent, easy read, good audiobook, Death by Meeting is great. It talks about it kind of from a movie mentality. So like when you watch a movie, if a movie has no drama in it, no conflict, it's a boring movie, right? It's not entertaining. There's nothing engaging about it. You have to have conflict so that you can kind of take two things and compare them against each other. And so when you look at meetings, you have to allow drama. You have to mine for conflict. So not just conflict, but you actually have to go looking for the conflict. So in a meeting, it's important to make sure that you don't just allow things to just slide. Like, you're like, oh boy, we only have 45 minutes for this meeting. I hope no one brings up anything. Well, that's the wrong attitude, because the reason you're in the meeting is there probably are things that need to be addressed, right? That's why you're meeting, is to address things. So if you don't look for those conflicts or those potential areas where there's trouble coming, then you're really missing your opportunity. You're wasting your time. And then finally, give real-time permission for the conflict. So that's one of the things Patrick Lencioni talks about, is giving an opportunity. It's okay for people to have difference of opinions. Now, you might, as the meeting leader, need to make sure that people don't run over each other. And there's all kinds of ways to do that, right? So we even try to do this in our classes, where we do like where we go around the room and we say, hey, everyone's going to contribute. So what that does is it lets everyone know that everyone gets an equal voice. Or what we do in meetings sometimes is what you call lightning round, where everyone gets exactly 1 minute to share what their department is doing or whatever. So the leader of the meeting has a great responsibility. They need to provide the structure for the meeting. So when someone walks into a meeting, if they think, oh, this is a 5-minute meeting, but when they sit down, they realize, oh no, this is a 3-hour meeting. Well, the meeting leader dropped the ball, and you're going to have some pretty upset people in the meeting, right? Or if someone thinks it's going to be a 3-hour meeting and they carved out half their day and the meeting is 15 minutes long, well, they're not going to be happy either, right? So it's the meeting leader's responsibility to provide context and structure. And the way to make not all meetings the same, and I think some of you referred to this in your discussion, but remember how he talks about there's different kinds of meetings, right? So not all meetings are the same. So you have a daily check-in meeting. We call that a stand-up meeting. And we call it a stand-up meeting because you literally don't sit down. Once you sit down, everyone gets comfortable. It leads to being 15 minutes, 30 minutes. You start talking about all the stuff you've done. But if everyone knows that everyone's just standing up to just touch base 5 minutes, it's just a daily touch base type meeting. That's the first level of meeting. Second level is weekly tactical. So let me pause for a second. Let me ask a question. Caleb Winey, as a veteran, give me the layman's definition difference between strategic and tactical. Would you say, Caleb Winey?
Strategic would be kind of thought out, pre-planned. When you think of strategy, kind of do like the sandbox when we go to do a strategy. And then the tactical aspect of it is more like the job profession side of it.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah. So like, you know, in the Army, you know, you guys have certain tactics that you use to accomplish, like you're going to go in and you're going to, you know, if you're doing some kind of anti-terrorism thing and you have to clear a room, well, you have tactics that you have to do. You have these 10 steps, you have these little checklists, you practice these small pieces. That's your tactics. Strategy is the big picture, the long view, the, you know, what's the big goals that you're looking at. And so strategy and tactics, the thing that makes meetings really frustrating to me are when you go in and what needs to be talked about in this meeting is strategy, but you get hung up just talking about the tactics the whole time and you never get to talk about strategy. And that happens a lot in organizations because, you know, people get comfortable and they kind of just are there kind of coasting, and before you know it, they waste a lot of time talking about stuff that could have been dealt with in a different meeting. And so strategy and tactics, very important to understand those two different kinds. And so you have a weekly tactical meeting, a lot of organizations do, and they're talking about what's happening this week, what's happening next week, what do we do with this, what about this personnel issue, what about this spending issue. Those are tactical things. But then the monthly strategic meetings is, okay, are we on track for the big picture? Are we going to end this year the way we thought we would? Where are we headed in the future? Things like that. And then, of course, they talk about off-site meetings, which might sound like, you know, something's kind of a luxury type thing, or like some kind of only, you know, big, complicated organizations do. But we even did this in the ministry. We would do quarterly off-site meetings where we would get to a different environment and we'd sit down and we had an agenda, and we forced ourselves not to talk about the day-to-day stuff, but we only talked about the big stuff. And it really was helpful. That's why a lot of coffee shops have those side rooms. Like over at Smoky Row, they have that big side room. Blue Bean, of course, has the garage. Companies pay to put their meetings into different locations because that change of environment changes the level of importance. People appreciate it when they get to go somewhere else. That's why I like doing classes in different locations sometimes, because it changes the level of importance and people enjoy that a lot. So I know it's probably, also obvious, but what you're going to find is you're going to go to work somewhere and you're going to be sitting in a meeting and you're going to be like, I remember talking about this in class and I hate this meeting. Ever since I read the book Death by Meeting, I have a really hard time sitting in bad meetings, like really hard time sitting in bad meetings. So you might be cursed with the knowledge of what a meeting should be like now. So what you have to do is try and make meetings better. That's your responsibility. When you go out and work on a team, this is the team dynamics class, it's your responsibility to help bring better meetings. And sometimes you might have a relationship with the meeting leader where you could follow up with them later on and say, hey, I don't know a lot, but could I make a suggestion for next meeting that might help? Because I notice, people are drifting and stuff like that. Some people, they don't want to change. They're like, hey, I'm going to give the information and it's your responsibility to learn it. Kind of like old school professors sometimes, right? They're like, hey, it's my job just to tell you what, and then you have to learn it. But if you want to be a really effective leader, you have to overcome that and say, yeah, but I need to meet my audience where they're at. And so people that run good meetings are fan favorites when it comes to leaders. You could have such an influence by just running good meetings. So, and it's not even so much about the content, it's more about the context and the structure. So anyway, I think it's really good. And again, I know you read a ton of books and you guys are always like loaded up on stuff, but if you're just looking for something kind of entertaining but will change the way you look at it, that Death by Meetings book is really, really good. And it's a great audio book, very easy. Listen to it in like 3 hours. So okay, all right, now we're gonna move on to the next one. You guys all wrote up a good summary about the topic, social media and workplace teams. And some of you had a hard time finding good resources, which is totally expected. These topics aren't necessarily like, mainline topics on the Gale resource list or JSTOR or whatever. So I expect you to have to dig a little bit sometimes. So what I want to do is give you about 3-4 minutes to review. I want you to pull up what you wrote up on social media, and I also want you to pull up what you wrote on Google. And we'll come back in 5 minutes. We'll come back at 12:31, and we're going to talk about those two topics. So you can mute your camera and your audio until you come back. All right. Bring it on back. Okay, everyone's coming back here. Here we go. This is how we're going to do it. I'm going to have 4 of you talk about social media and workplace teams, and I'm going to have 4 of you talk about Google and their team loyalty and employee engagement. So I think what I want to do is I just divided it. We'll start off with, we'll have Krista, Emmy, Max, and Joe talk about social media. And we're going to have Alyssa, Caleb, and Noah talk about Google. All right, that might help us. And what I think I'd like to do is I want to go back and forth so that we are kind of covering both topics so that people don't feel like they're repeating each other. So I'm going to have Krista talk about social media. Then I'm going to have Alyssa talk about Google. Then I'll have Emmy talk about social media. Then I'll have Caleb Love talk about Google. Then I'll have Max talk about social media. Then I'll have Caleb Winey talk about Google. Then Joe, and then Noah. Okay, so let's start with Krista talking about social media. What'd you get from what you found, and what do you think about it? Just take a minute.
Okay, well, my research focused more on like the hiring process. I'm not sure if that's exactly what you wanted, but
yeah, it's a broad topic, so you can go any direction with it. Yep.
So it's becoming more of an issue in today's culture because social media is so popular and everyone's on it. And I came across a really interesting article about someone who went on Shark Tank, and he came up with this, I don't know, program or something that like takes things that might harm your chances of getting hired, like it takes it down off your page or something so your potential employers can't see it. And I don't know, I just thought that was really interesting. And I think more and more people are running into problems of employers looking on their social media and finding things that they might not like or agree with. And then that is harming their chances of getting hired.
Excellent. Yeah, we talk about it a little bit in the business management class on the HR side, and then next semester when I teach HR management, we're going to spend a lot of time on social media and HR because it is a big issue, and there's some very specific laws that protect potential employees from having their social media used against them. On the other hand, people just do really dumb stuff, and so you have to kind of balance the two out. So great, thanks, Krista. All right, Alyssa, why don't you talk to us about Google?
What specifically about Google?
Well, just I think the topic was how does Google build team loyalty and employee engagement?
Okay. So the kind of like in my research, something that I was looking at was just the way that their campus is structured. Like it's a super collaborative and open campus. So they really encourage like flexibility among their employees, which I thought was cool. Like they don't really care when you work or how you work. They just kind of encourage like do it how much you like how you want to, like when you feel like it, you know. They have like a bunch of micro little kitchens around their campus that so that they don't have to go off to find food. They can just go, and then this way they can interact with other employees throughout the day and kind of throw and bounce ideas back and forth with each other. So I thought that was really interesting. And then some of like, I kind of was looking at like reviews of like employees that have worked there, and the majority of them said it's like a really good place to work because they have a lot of really, really good compensation, and like you're just working with brilliant people from day to day. And the main thing is like the management tries to create an environment that's really collaborative and open so that they can just um, present like a creative and innovative way to bring up new ideas and stuff like that. So it's just a very like open and unique environment is what I kind of gathered.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I selected Google because it's kind of it at least has the reputation. I was curious how the research was going to go, but it has the reputation of being that kind of place. So thank you, Alyssa. Okay, Emmy. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say one thing that I did notice was a couple people said that like the management is probably just depends on the person, but like some people said the management is a little bit distant, like because it is such a big company that you don't really feel connected to like the management because they're so like up here and everybody else is down here kind of a thing. So
yeah,
but it might just depend on where you are in the company too.
Yeah, it's I think it's probably one of the downsides of being part of such a mega corporation is you're going to have that power distance between the leaders and the workers. And so you need a lot of good middle managers in that kind of situation. So, all right, Emmy, let's talk about social media.
I guess just approaching social media in like a general aspect, I think it's a good way for people to promote themselves as well as their company. So I guess as a manager, like or a CEO of a company or anything like that, like they can use different platforms like Instagram and Facebook for more of like a casual type promoting of themselves, or just like kind of like like I said, casual. But things such as LinkedIn and everything are more professional. And so they're able to market themselves that way as well as future employees of the company. And then also companies themselves can promote themselves, I guess, and on platforms just as a company as a whole. So promoting what they are and what their mission is and everything like that. So they're able to present not only themselves, but also the company that they work for and the companies themselves. And gives them an ability to reach out to the community and just give more information that might not be common knowledge.
Yeah, great. Great. I think we all think of the main social media outlets, but there's a ton of other apps and stuff out there now that provide social media platforms for people in the workplace. I'm part of the Ankeny Leadership Institute with the Ankeny Chamber, and we use Slack. I don't know if you guys use Slack, but we use Slack pages, and it really creates a great collaborative environment for social media. It doesn't open it up to the public necessarily, but creates kind of an internal network. So great. Thanks, Emmy. Let's see here. Okay, Caleb Love. Let's talk about Google.
So I had a lot of the same stuff that Alyssa had, but I think I looked more into like why do companies put in so much effort into like working on loyalty and engagement? Because Google puts so much money and time into promoting a place that people want to work. They offer like the greatest. One article I was looking at, they offer like a super high amount of money and like time for paternity leave, even for fathers who are like the primary like provider of the family, and you'll get up to like, I think the number was like 18 weeks off, like up to that, to like get time to like spend time with your family, and you're getting paid while you're doing that. And so they promote they want to promote a family atmosphere in a place that you want to work and you speak really highly of. And I think of other companies that do a lot of this is like Chick-fil-A, and you don't really hear a lot of workers complaining about their Chick-fil-A. There's a few places where the management may not be as good, but most of the time these companies have put a lot of effort into promoting a place that people want to work and that they enjoy working and they feel valued as an employee there. Really promotes them to want to engage and make this a better place to work, and also they're very loyal to the company they work for.
That's great. You know, it makes you, when I hear you describe it, the first question comes to my mind is, how come every ministry isn't like this? Like, how come we can't choose to make ministries, churches, schools, colleges, camps, mission agencies, Alpha Women's Center, you know, you name it. How come we can't make ministries like that, where people just love to work there, and it has a, now I know sometimes money is an issue and things like that, but it does make you think about the testimony of it. I mean, Google obviously has a quote unquote testimony of engaging their employees. So great. Okay, Max, social media.
So the way I approached this was through the lens of productivity, and just seeing how social media impacted the productivity of teams in the workplace. Obviously, social media connects a lot of people, but teams have to have a unity for them to function well. They have to be unified in their common goal and have good communication. And what I found was that the use of social media in the workplace can kind of erode that unity of the focus, because it just ends up being a distraction. Because workers can end up spending a lot of time when they're supposed to be working, but instead they're on social media. So it really detracts from the unified focus on the goal, which then can erode out that team unity. And not only does it erode at the unity, but it also can put a strain on some of their resources as well. Like, since so many companies are internet-based, or at least have factors that are internet-based, even YouTube is considered a social media by some standards, and you know, YouTube uses a lot of bandwidth, and that can put a strain on some of the resources as far as like how their internet traffic is functioning. And then the other thing that I found was, because although a lot of social media platforms can be distracting, it wasn't all of them, because some of them, such as LinkedIn, actually was showed to have an increase in productivity. And the article I found said it improved productivity by as much as 9%. So, I mean, it kind of depends on how it's being used, but as a whole, it tends to be more of a distraction instead of a help.
Yeah. It's an issue that didn't even exist 10, 15 years ago. And there's Sam in the background. Glad to see he's fully dressed and not embarrassing us or anything like that. So that's good. Okay, excellent. Let's see. All right, Caleb Winey, talk about Google.
All right, so actually, I really enjoyed doing some research on Google, and something interesting. They have, let me pull it up again, my stats here. They have a crazy amount of applicants every day, and I focused more on how Google locks down their employees and keeps them within the company. And I have my assignment pulled up, and no, it's not there anymore. But anyway, so they have like several thousand applications sent in, and it's just wicked. But their revenue last year was like $161 billion. And their workplace is actually how they keep their employees. And they do like free haircuts, free healthcare benefits. They have like napping pods. And so the workplace is phenomenal. And their hiring process is actually what hooked me the most, is when they bring people in, they sit them down, have their interview, and they actually ask them like oddball questions just to really get them thinking and to watch their thought process and how they manage handling issues. So basically, if they, for an example, one of the questions was, how many golf balls will fit inside a school bus? I couldn't even tell you the slightest amount. The easy answer for me is I don't know. Well, that's not what's going to get you hired at Google. They're watching you try to handle that problem and handle that thought process. And that was super fascinating to me, that they would ask you a question that you don't know an answer to. They aren't looking for an answer. They're wanting to see how you process that question and handle the problem. But yeah, if you make it beyond and you get a job with Google, you're pretty well set. The company takes care of their employees, and they spend a lot of money making sure their employees are comfortable. And as a result of that, Google has been a phenomenal company. And I was reading another article on Gale, and it sounds like there could be some, at kind of the top level, some sketchy leadership, but kind of on the floor level, all of that management is A+, A1, but you get like one or two steps above that. I've heard it gets kind of rougher, kind of a couple levels above that, but the general workplace, general people you're running into, it's phenomenal. Their employee retention is, state of the art. So that's what I found about Google.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I think people literally will relocate all the way across the country just to work for Google, and it's probably not just because of the compensation. So excellent. All right, Joe, tell us about social media in the workplace.
So I took social media more from like the employer standpoint, I guess, and how to deal with employees and social media. The article I read talked about how like 8% of the top, or I think it was like companies with 1,000 plus employees, like 8% of the employees are getting fired for social media problems or something. Like what they talking about their boss on social media when they shouldn't be, or like posting stuff about the company's private information or policies, and or like their customers' policy information, private information. Like in a lot of medical fields, you can't talk about patients or anything, and so you can get in a lot of trouble if you post anything or share it publicly. So that's a big problem nowadays. So their solution was like have policies that keep people from posting that kind of information and company information. But there's also good stuff that comes with it. Like the way I thought of it was you can connect better with your customers. Like they feel like close and personal with you if you like share things with them on social media or like connect with them directly, kind of like on Facebook. Like if you're friends with them or they like your page, then you kind of have that friend bond and you can reach out to them more and they just feel more at home, I guess. So that was kind of the better aspect of it.
Yeah, it's two sides of the same coin. How many of you last year went to we did a thing with Carlos over at Bluebeam where he talked about leveraging your social media for your brand? A couple of you went, right? Yeah. And he talked about which platforms work well depending on what you're trying to do, and the upside of just being present, not perfect, with social media as a company. So, like, I'm going to pick on Krista because you're starting your Black Rose design company. Having something out there that shows, hey, look, I just fluffed this pillow or whatever, whatever the picture is, right? Well, that picture doesn't need to be a professional photo shoot. It needs to be something that, like, hey, this is what I did today. Someone that's good at this. A lot of real estate people are picking up on this. Lori Culp is really good at this. She posts on Instagram all the time and talks about what's happening in her real estate world and stuff like that. And it just engages people. And so I think, Joe, you pointed out there is a positive aspect. It basically makes you accessible to your customers, and everything doesn't have to be a professional. You don't have to be a professional influencer to be on social media to use it effectively. So, all right, Noah, why don't you bring us home with the final discussion on Google?
And so mine was pretty similar to K.O. Blaney's, with that Google like really has a lot of perks and benefits for their employees, because they understand that turnover is way more costly than keeping your employees. Like it gets up to twice as expensive or twice the annual income of an employee to replace them. So, doing the small stuff like giving them free meals at the job site, or the article I read said doctors, which I don't really, I guess that's like free, like um, medical, or so. I don't really know what that looks like. It
Yeah,
just said,
I think they have clinics at their workplaces because they realize that if someone has to, leave work to go to a doctor's appointment to get a prescription, or maybe they have a sick child and they've got to work all that out. If Google could just have space in their facility where someone can get their medical stuff taken care of, it basically takes a big pressure off of their employees. And so a lot of large companies do that, surprisingly. A lot of airlines and stuff will have like their own clinics and stuff so that their employees don't have to wait in line for hours somewhere else. They have their own doctor and nurse on staff that they go in and get a prescription and stuff like that for the small stuff. So,
gotcha.
yeah.
And sorry.
No, go ahead.
And then the other thing you said was washing machines. So I assume it's the same thing with washing machines on site. And then they even offered $1 million reward if I didn't really understand this part because I'm not techie, but it's like in their security program or something. If somebody could find a bug that messes with their program in the app or whatever, then they get like $1 million reward. And then there's another one that was like $1.5 million. So they definitely incentivize their employees and give them a lot of perks and benefits.
Yeah, yeah, and all that would not be enough if it was, poorly managed, or if they didn't feel like they were setting a vision for something that's really cool about the future. But Google's also done a good job of kind of casting a vision that they're helping innovate the way the world's going to be in the future, and so people want to be part of that, and gives people a reason to want to go to work every day. So excellent. Well, good feedback all the way around, guys, on the social media and Google. You got the spirit of what I was trying to get, which is I'm trying to give you a general topic that relates to teams and the workplace, and then you kind of use that topic as a springboard to think a little more deeply on how these different companies or different topics are, how they're happening, right? So what I don't want to have happen is you're done with college someday and you've never even thought about how businesses function, and big businesses and small businesses, and what works and what doesn't. And so these issues are all relevant, and you guys are doing a good job thinking through it. So thank you very much. So I think we're going to wrap it up with that for today. Lord willing, I'll be in class on Monday, although we won't have this class, but I should drop a assignment in by Monday afternoon for you. So that'll be our topic for discussion for next Friday. And then, wait, next week's midterm. So I can't remember what the schedule is supposed to be like. There is no midterm exam for this class, so you don't have to worry about that. There'll probably be like just more of a regular assignment, and then I'll look at the schedule later on and figure out when we're all meeting together. But I should be around next week. So if you need anything, just let me know. If not, have a great homecoming weekend. Okay. All right. See you guys later.